Hello, welcome into the Starcastic Remarks studios. My name is Ryan. I'm the host of Starcastic Remarks, and we are a part of the Hockey Podcast Network, and we'd like to thank DraftKings for being the sponsor for our podcast and also the entire Hockey Podcast Network. Make sure you go and use the promo code THPN the next time you go and use their app. The Stars lose tonight, and don't even get me started because I will get started here in just a little bit. I'm going to try and hold back. They lose tonight to the worst team in the NHL tonight by a final score of 3-1 against the Arizona Coyotes. So tonight it is just me on video, but tonight we also do have Chris on through the phone. Chris, can you hear me just to make sure it's working?
Yeah, we're all good. The Coyotes are not the worst team.
Okay, they're the second
worst team.
They're the second worst team. Not much better, right?
Put some respect on our name, bro.
Yeah, the respect to our name is that we lose to all these teams. Stupid. But
yeah, pretty predictable. I mean, so I'm at my parents' place this weekend. We actually talked about at lunch about how the Stars were going to lose to the Coyotes because they're on the second night of back-to-back, so we were obviously going to lose.
So it's your fault that they lost tonight then?
Yep, definitely.
100% you're the reason why they lost. But anyways, if you had to take one thing out of tonight's game, Chris, what was something that you would take out of tonight's game?
I mean, we didn't play 60 minutes. We played 20 minutes. I mean, of course, Wedgwood played great on those last 20 minutes. But if we played that way the whole game, there would have been no chance. We would have won 5-0. But, I mean, we can't get ourselves ready to play a team like that. That should be an easy 2 points. And they just weren't prepared, and they couldn't get themselves going the whole game. And really, the only line that was playing well the whole game was the first line. The first line, Heiskanen and Suter, and that was it.
I don't even think the first line played all that great tonight, to be honest with you. The only time we really saw the Stars play well tonight was in the third period, not the first period. And I mean, that's the biggest takeaway from this game. I'm going to entitle this episode Later, Too Little, Too Late. Because, I saw that chance by Robertson there in the third period, and it was too late. It didn't matter that it went off the post. You know, those kind of things is okay to happen if you play a full 60-minute effort game. And then that's just something that the Stars didn't do tonight. They played a really crappy 40 minutes, and then they got goalied in one period.
Yep, 100% agree. I mean, Wedgwood was great, but you can't blame it on that when you don't play 2/3 of the game.
Right, and it's just super frustrating to. And I'm just going to go through this real quick because I'm sick of talking about it. But I have to keep talking about it because I don't understand.
It keeps happening.
It keeps happening, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the beginning of the year. I'm going to mention any games that I see that are games that we probably should have won against teams that we should have beat, right? Okay, so I'm going to go all the way back to October, okay? First game that we probably should have won that we lost was against Ottawa. We lost 2-3 on October 17th. About a week later, we lost to Columbus 4-1. 4 days later, we lost to Ottawa 4-1. Again, about 2 weeks later. About 2 weeks later, we lose to Vancouver 6-2. And it goes a while. You know, a month of November was okay, other than that loss to Vancouver. But then we lose 4-0 to the Los Angeles Kings. We lose 2-1 to the San Jose Sharks in the month of December. In January, we lose 3-5 to the Montreal Canadiens, and then we lose 4-3 to the Calgary Flames. And now everyone's saying, "Oh well, what about the Calgary Flames? They're first in the Pacific Division." Doesn't matter. That's still the game we should have won. And then tonight we lose. We lose to the Arizona Coyotes 3-1. So I don't know how many points that is. Chris, how many games was that?
Too many.
It's 7 or 8 games, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you take seven games times 2, 14 points up for grabs. You know, you add that to the Stars right now. You add 14 points to their record. and they would be second in the Central Division right now.
Yeah, and that's all to bad teams too. Like,
yes,
those are games that we could have, should have won. I'll exempt even Calgary and the Kings, and those 5-ish, I guess, games are ones that we have to win if we're a good team. And the Stars have just proven that they are very good at losing to terrible teams. I mean, especially the Montreal loss. That was the only win Montreal had in a 15-game span, when their entire organization was falling apart, and we still found a way to lose.
Well, and there's a couple comments on here that I need to point out because they're very true. Eric is saying on YouTube, thank you, Eric, for listening. Both losses to Vegas were inexcusable. I can't remember the second one, but especially the one where we were up by 2, which that was another game we probably should have won and we lost. And then Brandon said yes, and that loss to Nashville at the start of the season was the same. So I kind of give him a little bit of a pass just because it was the beginning of the season and it was Nashville. But at the same time, Brandon, you're kind of right, because Nashville was a team that we should be beating right now. And we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot right now. Absolutely shooting ourselves in the foot.
Especially right now. Nashville's not playing well. I mean, right now they're a bad team, and we've got to take advantage of that when we get it, and we're really not.
And I know everyone's saying oh, well, the Stars are doing really well. They have a good, decent overall record. And I think something was mentioned that they were 4-2 in their last 6 games or something like that. That's great. That's fantastic. Don't lose games to teams you should beat. Don't lose games to teams you should beat. And especially don't lose games that you're up and you lose. Like the Vegas game is in particular. We were up 4-2. In a game that we didn't deserve to win, and we ended up losing the game. Those are the kind of things you have to win. You have to win those kind of games, and you have to win the games against the teams that suck. Sorry. Sorry, go ahead.
Focusing back on tonight, too, this is a game that we could have easily won, too, if we had just shown up and were prepared to play. And it was just obvious that we were not ready to play this hockey game. And for a team that's the oldest team in the league, that has such great veterans on the team, that has such a veteran coach, that should be the last thing we should be worried about. I mean, these guys should know how important every game is, especially when their careers are coming to an end. You're running out of chances, dude, and you're just giving up on it. I mean, it feels like this is the last team that should have an issue with this, and it's been a problem for us for 2 or 3 years now.
It's especially been bad the past 2 years because we were just not consistent last year when it came to winning games in overtime. And you take half of the 14 losses that we had in overtime or shootouts last year, and we would have made the playoffs. And mark my words, I'm going to say it again, just like I said on Twitter earlier. Mark my words, and I hope I'm wrong, but we're going to look at the end of the season. We're going to be outside of the playoff picture, and we're going to be like, if only we had won that game against Montreal. If only we had beat the Arizona Coyotes that one game. If we had only beat the Ottawa Senators, those 2 games I really hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. But we're going to look back at the end of the season, and we're going to be like, there were too many games that we gave up that we should have won.
Yep, I think you're 100% right.
So, so before we get into the goal summary for tonight, Chris, I wanted to get your opinion on how you felt about the line juggling by Rick Bowness, because some people are kind of upset about it. Some people are kind of like, yeah, I get it. I mean, there were some weird combos tonight. I don't have them up here in front of me, but yeah, Ben was back at center, and the typical top three lines that we've been seeing were not together. Peterson and Rads were not together. Sagan and Ben were not together. It was really just that top line that kind of stayed together. How did you feel about the line juggling? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to get Ben back to where he feels more dangerous, and he's trying to get Radulov going too. Is really what all those line shifting comes down to. The problem is it's idiotic to do when you're finally going on a good stretch here, playing pretty consistently. The last couple of games have gotten bailed out by Otter, but still, I mean, if it's working, don't try to fix it. And that's exactly what he tries to do. He tries to fix it. It's idiotic. There's no reason to shuffle the lines when you're still getting the W's. I mean, it helps my argument at least that it failed spectacularly. I mean, every line other than the first line did nothing. I mean, Ben and Sagan looked terrible all night long. Radulov at least was good on the forecheck, but other than that, I mean, there was not really any dangerous chances from anyone other than the first line.
Well, I'm honestly with bonus on this. All right,
Okay.
now hear me out. Okay, to be totally honest, even when we had the four lines the way they were, what was still the only line that was getting going? It was that first line, right?
But Sagan has more points recently. He's second in the team with points in the past 10 games, only behind Joe Pavelski.
Right.
Like, he's finally getting him going. You put him back down on a line with Glendening and Raffle for, like, he had 4 or 5 shifts with Glendening and Raffle. Like, what a way to stifle points. Like, there's no way he's going to score on that line.
Well, and the other thing is, though, Chris, is you also have to look at the past couple of games and the fact that I think the Stars had 1 even strength goal in the past 3 games, even though we've won we're 2-1 in the last 3. So I understand what he's doing, but it just didn't work. And he looks like an idiot, but I'm not going to call him on it just because of that. But I can't understand why, Stars fans would be frustrated, especially with the Sagan point, because Sagan has finally started, I wouldn't say he's looking like vintage Tyler Sagan, if I can talk, but he's definitely looked better in the past, dozen games or so. He's been almost a point per game player.
He's looked better, and then you handcuff him by taking away Jamie Benn, like the person he plays best with. It just seems stupid to me.
So let's go ahead and get into the goal summary and for tonight's game, just to talk about it, because it just seemed like the first and second period were just overall just terrible. And the first period was boring. Sorry, but the first period was just flat out boring. The Stars were not skating. And honestly, the Arizona Coyotes actually looked pretty decent. But, considering the fact they have...
score.
Do what?
They're not good enough to score.
Right, exactly. That's exactly the point. Is like the way they played in the first period, they should have been up by a goal or 2. But through the first period, I think we were outshot 10-6. 12-7, excuse me. 12-7 in the first period, excuse me. And then how did you feel about the Stars play in the first period? Were you frustrated? Were you just like, whatever, they're playing down to their level? What did you think?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely playing down to their level, and even lower. I mean, we weren't skating at all. We didn't win any puck battles. I mean, our penalty kill was good. I mean, I'll give us that, but other than that, there was nothing.
So going into the second period, for the first half of the period, it was the same thing again. The Arizona Coyotes just looked hungrier. They looked better. Their forecheck was giving. We were turning the puck over like crazy. And then finally, a really bad turnover by Esa Lindell in the corner, which was very strange, ends up in the back of our net after Nick Schmaltz kind of jacks it from him, and he passes it to Lawson Krause, who is in front of the net, completely wide open, and Krause gets his 14th of the year, 1-0 Arizona.
That's a crazy turnover. I mean, that's awful. I mean, that's one of the few awful plays we had tonight. So, I'm sure we'll talk about some more later too.
Right. And it finally seems like that the Stars get some sort of urgency in their game. Roope Hintz gets his 22nd of the year from Pavs and Heiskanen. And it was kind of just like a broken play, really. It kind of bounced around a couple times, got deflected twice, and Hintz happened to get the goal there. And it's tied 1-1, and it wasn't even a minute later. So that first line, kind of came up for the Stars there, 1-1.
Yeah, and it's a good response, but like, and this is why I keep harping on the bottom 3 forward lines, is like, we get a goal like that, that's got to be a momentum boost. That's got to make the next shift come out strong and just as aggressive. And the next shift was just as flat as the first half of the game. Like, there's no change. Like, it can't be, oh, great, the first line did it again. Let's go skate out there until they're rested enough to come back and score again. Like, they don't build off of the momentum that first line gives at all.
So let me go ahead and ask you this, because this popped into my head. And maybe this is a loaded question, right? Well, maybe I'll save it. I'll save it till the end because it's a loaded question, but I need to remember that. But anyways, it's 1-1 in the second period, and then Nick Schmaltz would actually get his 9th of the year from Gossip Spear and Clayton Keller, and it's a power play goal to the worst team in the NHL on the power play, and the Stars give it up. 2-1 Arizona.
Yeah. I mean, that was lucky, though, honestly.
Still, they couldn't get it out of their own zone.
Yep, that's true. But
yeah,
I don't know how that went.
And again, it's if you play, you actually have some energy in your game in the first 2 periods. Maybe a goal like that isn't that big a deal because you're up by 2. Maybe it's 3-1 Stars and you give up that goal, whatever. Big deal. No big deal. But in this case, because the Stars had absolutely no urgency or energy or anything in those first 2 periods, it's a big deal. And Arizona's got the lead going into the second intermission. It's just super frustrating for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just the energy is what we're going to talk about all night long, but that's the reason we lost. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Going into the third period, Stars are down 2-1, and Stars do not have a good record when they are down by a goal or more going into the third period. I had that record here somewhere, but now I can't find it, but whatever. But the important thing is that it looked like they got shot out of a cannon. It finally seemed like they had even more urgency into the game, and they completely dominated the third period, Chris. What did you think of the Stars' play in the third period?
It's a great third period. I mean, it's one of the best of the season.
Should have been the first.
If it's in the first, we win by 5 goals to this team. I mean, and there's no reason, and that proves that it's laziness in the first 2 periods too, because they had this, they could do it, and they just didn't because they didn't want to. Because it's the Coyotes, they don't have to. They're too good. It's laziness, is what it is, and that's what makes this loss so frustrating. If they had tried hard and really just they'd been like, okay, great performance. It was a good game to watch. But it's not that. Because if we had this pressure all night long, there's no chance we lose. But they don't do it. And it happens way too often. Every one of those games that you mentioned, it has felt like this game. Like the Stars decide to play a little too late.
And it's just super frustrating because, again, if you have those 14 points that I mentioned, you're second in the division right now.
And those 14 points are just care points. You just have to care more. And how do you not care? You're going to pay millions of dollars. You're running out of time to get into the playoffs and win a Stanley Cup. What's stopping you?
And I'm going to go ahead and pull up Troy's comment here because Troy has a really good comment here. Okay. And he says, okay, so the Yotes aren't exactly a meaningful game. Our concern is for the Central. Still, these 2 points are huge. I'm staying optimistic that maybe we'll come back and beat the HE double hockey stick out of the Jets and Preds. And, a lot of people don't realize this. I don't know if Troy knows this or not, but Arizona actually is in the Central Division right now. So they are in the Central, but our concern is for the Central, for the teams above us. But right now, those 2 points are way more important for us than it is for the Coyotes. And again, we can't leave points like this out to teams who are below us. And we go out and we win these games against like Colorado, the best team in the league, 2 games ago, and Otter stands on his head, and we get him goals, timely goals when we need it. And then we turn around 2 games later and we lose to the worst team in the NHL because we just don't have the energy for it. By the way, and we should mention this too. The Coyotes played yesterday. They just played yesterday. Yes, it was at their home building at Gila River Arena, but they still played yesterday. And they looked like the better team for 2/3 of this game.
Yeah. And I mean, I think he's right about us having a better chance to get against Winnipeg and the Preds too. I feel better about our chances of winning against those teams because, I mean, it's going to force them to care. Those teams are close to us, and we need to beat those teams to stay in the hunt. But, I mean, you've got to make yourself care about these 2 points. It's still 2 points. There's crazy important. And they just can't make themselves play hard against teams that they feel like are beneath them.
It's just extremely frustrating. I really hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to say it again. We're going to look back on these points that we missed, 2 of these tonight, and we're going to be like, what could have been? So we'll see. But still, it's just super frustrating. And the fact of the matter is that these games against the Preds and against the Jets are, just as, freaking out about points as we are, because they're even below us. And then Nashville is looking down and realizing, the Stars are getting a little too close. They're in the first wild card spot right now. We were only 4 points behind them tonight. We win this game tonight, and we're only 2 points behind the Nashville Predators for that first wild card spot. But because we didn't take care of business against the teams that we should, we're still at the same spot. And meanwhile, the Preds and everybody above them are cheering and screaming for the Coyotes and thanking them for their service. So it's just, I don't know. But anyways, I should finish off the goal summary before I get any more mad. But Clayton Keller would put the empty net in, and it's his 20th of the year. Schmaltz and Mayo get the assists, and Arizona wins the game 3-1. And the only other thing I would mention about this game is, Scott Wedgwood saved the game for the Coyotes in that third period. He looked excellent. And I don't want to take anything away from him. So huge shout out to Scott Wedgwood.
Yeah, definitely. He played out of his mind. I mean, just like he was making Fleury-esque save.
Right, exactly.
On that, but he totally saved it. But again, the Stars blew this one.
And Brandon saying we could have been within 1 point of the Kings spot, but nope, more inconsistencies from the Stars. And I 100% right there with you, Brandon. I wish that I could say that I'm, hopeful for the games on Wednesday and Thursday, but we'll see. And Brandon is also saying on Wednesday and Thursday they're must-win games, and if we can go into Sunday and get that win too, maybe we can get some momentum. The thing is, Brandon, is that, we win these games, the games we don't expect to win, and then we lose the games that we expect to win. So I know I shouldn't be upset in the fact that, the Stars have a winning record, and they've had a winning record over the past, month and a half, but it could be so much better. It could be absolutely so much better if they just took care of business against these really terrible teams. I'm just repeating myself.
It's going to have to be to get us to the playoffs. I mean, the record that we had this month, I agree with you, it's very good, but we have to take care of business on these teams, or else we're not going to get in. It's good, it's not good enough. Due to our start. So
pulling up the standings here, I'm looking on the NHL app. So if we're looking at the Central Division here in the wild card spots, because those are really the only ones that we care about, really. Colorado's got 76 points. They're not going to lose that. They're not going to lose that spot. They're going to keep it. St. Louis has got 64. Minnesota's got 63. Nashville's got 60. And then we have 56. So we could have been within striking distance of even second or third in the Central tonight. But I was just thinking too much ahead, but I was thinking, oh yeah, we'll be fine. And we'll get to that point. Need to be careful and, just make sure I keep my words to myself before I talk, because it seems like the Stars just continue to do that. They just continue to underperform against the really bad teams. So I think we're losing Chris here a little bit there because his internet connection's going out a little bit. But Chris, can you hear me, bud?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, there we go. All right. Well, anyways, is there anything else we really need to talk about here tonight, Chris?
I mean, I got into this a little bit with Dad, but when you find again and again that the team isn't ready, I mean, I feel like that's got to be down to a coaching thing. And I mean, everyone knew I was going to go there, but if it's not the coach's job to get the team ready, then what is his job?
I don't know. And, you make a really good point about this too, Chris, because I was actually watching the Steve Dangle podcast about a week ago, and they were talking about the fact that, the coaches aren't really coaches per se. I mean, they're not going to go out and tell these professionals who make millions of dollars, hey, you need to hold your stick like this and you need to shoot the puck up like this way. Their main job is to be motivators. And it doesn't seem like that he has that ability to motivate them in these kind of games. Is that the case?
I mean, I think that's 100% true. And it's not. So I agree Bones is a problem and that we should get someone to motivate. But we should already have people who can motivate too. I mean, we all saw the video of Jamie Benn in the locker room after we lost the Stanley Cup. Like, how does that guy not come off of that feeling, like being as close as he's going to come in his career, and not have a fire under his butt for the rest of his career? Like, anytime you come into a game like this, you should just go back to that emotion. What it felt like being so close. 2 wins away from achieving your childhood dream of winning the Stanley Cup. And you can't get yourself going for a Sunday evening game against a bad team when you need the points. Like, we're not good enough to limp through this game. We need it to get to that place again. So I don't know why the veteran guys can't do it for themselves either.
We don't deserve to be in the playoffs if this is the case. If we can't win these games like this, we don't deserve to be in the playoffs. And I'm going to go ahead and open the bag of worms here on this now, Chris. This is the question that I was going to ask you earlier, because we were talking about line juggling and the fact that it seems like something's missing. And this is a big point of contention with a bunch of Stars fans right now. And my question to you is, we have the trade deadline coming up here in about 2-3-ish weeks, maybe about a month or so. I can't remember the exact date. Who are we? Are we sellers? Are we buyers, or are we stand patters?
I mean, Nil is such a conservative GM that I don't think we're going to do anything. So if we're anywhere close to the playoffs, like we have been for the past, feels like 8 months, then I think we're gonna sit still and we're gonna try our chances at getting into the playoffs. But honestly, if the team keeps doing what it's doing now, even with the better record that we're getting, I hope that we sell. I mean, this team doesn't have the motivation for it. I just don't think this team is good enough to win a Stanley Cup, and there's no way that we can get better. I mean, our cap is at its max. We're selling all of our UFA. We have a lot of UFAs this upcoming season. I just don't see this team getting better, and it's not good enough to win a cup, in my opinion. So I hope we sell.
And let me ask you this then. If we're buyers, what kind? I'm not going to ask you for a specific player because that'd be kind of putting you on the spot right now. But if we were buyers and Nil was like, no, screw this, we're going to make the playoffs, and I'm going to make sure we make the playoffs, what's the kind of player that you're looking for? And then what do you think the Stars would be willing to give up?
Well, we don't have any cap space, so we can't just buy. But I love the idea of a 1-for-1, like the Line A trade. I can't remember the other guy's name right now. But a 1-for-1 deal, superstar for another superstar. Yeah, Pierre-Luc Dubois. If we just shake something up, change something, I think it would be great. But again, Nil is not the GM that'll do that. He is so conservative, it's just not going to happen. I just wish something like that would happen to change the Stars, because it feels like the same issues that we're talking about are the same ones that we were talking about when we started the podcast. It's crazy. Teams don't do that in the NHL unless you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I was about to say you might want to ask Steve Dangle about that and how he feels about that. But and here's my thought process on all of this when it comes to the trade deadline and all of this. You have to make a decision. There's no, in my opinion, I shouldn't have even said stand patters as it being an option. You're either a buyer or you're a seller. Period. 100% hands down. And that you hope that it goes your way. If you're a buyer, you're going all in, and I mean you're willing to trade first-round draft picks to get the players that you need to make this team, get over the hump and to get into the playoffs. Or if you're a seller, you're willing to part with Klingberg and Pavelski and Radulov. And I mean, and especially those first two guys. Can you imagine the return that we could get for those two guys, even if they were just like deadline rentals for the teams that we trade them to? I mean, Pavelski he's been absolutely amazing since the 2020 bubble playoffs, especially. Any team he goes to would love to have him, just based off the way he's been playing right now. And then Klingberg, a puck moving defenseman who can, pitch in on the power play as well, who can get shots in from the point. You have to make a decision. You have to make a decision. And if we stand pat, I'm going to be upset.
I agree with you 100%. That's what should happen. With Jim Nill, I don't think it's going to happen. And that brings up the question, like, okay, then is Jim Nill the guy? And it's really making me question, especially with the way the modern NHL is. It's all about changing. It's all about shaking stuff up, seeing what works. And that's not how Nill does things. He's slow and methodical, and he doesn't like making rash decisions. But that's not how the league works right now. I mean, teams are going from last place in their league to winning the Stanley Cup, winning the cup with interim coaches, and that's just not how Nill works. So I'm not sure. I don't think it's time to ring the bell, but I think it's time to at least find out where the bell is on Nill's hot seat.
Yeah, and if we miss the playoffs, there will be a very big shakeup, in my opinion, and we will probably go into a very large retool. There will be a lot of players that are here now that will not be here in the offseason. And
well, if we miss the playoffs, we're not going to have enough tools to retool. We're going to lose a bunch of UFAs for nothing. And that's why I agree with you that we need to either buy or sell, and we better not do nothing.
Right. And I mean, you have to be, and I know Jim Nill loves his first round draft picks, and I know he loves, holding on to those draft picks, which I totally get. I totally understand it, because you have no idea what those draft picks can turn into. But the fact of the matter is you're in a position right now where you kind of made a decision to just, go for it. Go for it now. Which is why I think you have to be willing to trade those first and second round draft picks. And he has not been willing to do that. And I really feel like you have to keep the roster that you have, and you have to be willing to part with those draft picks in order to get players that you can take to win now. Okay? And I mean, and for me, if you're looking for somebody specific, you're looking for a first or second line scoring winger, or even a center, for crying out loud. I mean, somebody who can score other than the top three right now.
Lord knows we need more centers.
Sorry, Chris, go ahead. Say it again.
Lord knows we need more centers. We don't have enough.
Yeah, that's also true. So, but anyways, I'll say the stats and we'll close it off here tonight, Chris. Shots on goal per period. We already said first period 12-7 in favor of the Coyotes, 10-9 in favor of the Coyotes in the second. Stars completely destroy them 17-5 in the third period, and final shots on goal total 33-27 in favor of the Stars. Face-off percentage 60-40 in favor of the Stars there. Stars lose the special teams battle tonight. They go 0-2 on the power play, and the Arizona Coyotes go 1-3. Hits tonight 25-21 in favor of the Arizona Coyotes. And just in general, Chris, there's too many takeaways, too many giveaways.
Sloppy
too little,
hockey.
too late.
Yeah, too little, too late. That's definitely the theme, and we got to find a way to make ourselves ready to play these hockey games. I mean, we've got so many different people who are supposed to be able to do it, and no one's doing it. So something's got to change. I agree. At the trade deadline, something better change, or else, as Stars fans, we need to make sure that it's known that we're upset.
And we can best do that with our pocketbooks. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully, I'm either way. Something drastic for me is I want to happen. Either you sell off or you buy. don't stand pat at the trade deadline, please. Anyways, guys, we're going to close it off here tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight. This has been the after game review for game 49 against the Arizona Coyotes, where they lose 3-1. Thank you once again to DraftKings for sponsoring this episode and also the entire Hockey Podcast Network. Please go and use that promo code THBN the next time you go and use their app for a special little offer from them. And once again, along with Chris, I am Ryan, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good evening.